6 years ago now, Shamima Begum left her home in East London for a new life in war-torn Syria. She would become infamous worldwide as an ISIS bride.
She is now desperate to come home from the Syrian detention camp where she's being held. But the Home Office has revoked her British citizenship and the courts have refused her appeals to come back. We're going to be speaking to her in her first live interview in just a moment. We can cross now to the Al-Roj camp in northern Syria and speak to Shamima Begum in her first live interview. Shamima, there is already furious reaction to your presence on the programme, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because when someone goes to join ISIS, they are considered a terrorist. Is that a fair description of you?
No, I don't think so, because the reason I came to ISIS, to Syria, was not for any violent reasons, not because I wanted to be a terrorist. It was because I thought I was doing the right thing as a Muslim, and I did not want to hurt anyone, in Syria or anywhere else in the world. So,
Can you explain what you mean by wanting to do the right thing, by leaving your family and going to join a death cult?
At the time, firstly, I did not know that it was a death cult. I thought it was an Islamic community that I was joining. And at the time, I had just recently started becoming very religious. And I was being fed a lot of information on the internet by people in ISIS telling me that I need to come because I can't be a good Muslim in the UK, and that my family will only drag me down with them.
You were 15 when you left with your two friends. Are you saying here, based on that last answer, Shamima, are you saying that you were groomed?
I think, yes, I was groomed and taken advantage of and manipulated into coming, yes.
And what did you think you were going to do when you
Because most 15-year-olds don't know. Yeah.
So it's all right, we've got a bit of a delay on this, so we're going to talk over each other from time to time. That's just going to happen. What did you think you were going to do when you got to Syria? What were you expecting to do? What were you expecting to happen to you?
Just get married and have children and live a pure Islamic life,
But you must have known what was going on in Syria, that there was a full-scale war going on, and that ISIS was attempting to basically colonise the Middle East through acts of brutal terror. I mean, you must have known that.
I did not know that there was war. I knew that there was war, but not in the places where women and children were living. I thought where I was going, it would be safe for me and for any children I would have. And I did not know that ISIS was, trying to take over the world. I just thought they wanted their small piece of land where they could live an Islamic life.
Well, let me ask you a core question here then, Shamima. Are you asking the British people to forgive you? And if you are asking the British people to forgive you, why should we?
I am asking the British people to forgive me because I made a mistake at a very young age. Most young people don't know what they want to do with their lives, and they are very confused, and they can easily fall into things like this. And I know it's very hard for the British people to try and forgive me because, they've lived in fear of ISIS. They've lost loved ones because of ISIS, but I also have lived in fear of ISIS, and I also have lost loved ones because of ISIS. So I can sympathise with them in that way. And I know that it's very hard for them to forgive me, but I say from the bottom of my heart that I am so sorry if I ever offended anyone by coming here, if I ever offended anyone by the things I said in Hall. I just said those things because I lived in fear of the women, and I did not want to do those interviews anyway, and I was unaware of what ISIS had done in the UK and in other parts of the world, and I should not have been making comments about things I didn't know about.
Well, let's explain what you mean by that. When you were located by, I think it was the Times newspaper and a journalist, you gave an interview where you came across as completely unrepentant, very different from the way you're speaking now. You came across as somebody who basically thought you had done the right thing and that ISIS was a good organisation to be involved with, you seem to be extraordinarily immune to the horrors that you'd seen. I mean, you talked about seeing severed heads in bins, and you said that it hadn't fazed you. You even made some comments later on in another interview about the Manchester arena bombing. Basically said it was justified. It was tit for tat. That because ISIS were being bombed by various parties, it was reasonable for ISIS to bomb back. What do you think about, and what do you say about that now?
I do not believe that one evil justifies another evil. I don't think that women and children should be being killed for other people's, motives and for other people's agendas. I did not know about the Manchester bombing when I was asked. I did not know that people were killed. I did not know that women and children were hurt because of it. So I was just speaking without knowing fully what I was talking about. And obviously I was afraid of the women again.
Shamima, you seem to say you don't know a lot. The Manchester bombing was the murder of 22 people, including children. The youngest victim was 8 years old. More than 1,000 people were injured. It was a horrific attack. And for you to have said that there was a justification sickened everybody who heard what you said. And people find it hard to believe when you say, I didn't know about ISIS. I didn't know it was a death cult. I didn't know about the dreadful things that happened. And now you're saying you didn't know about the Manchester bombing. People are going to find it sickening to hear you claim ignorance of those things.
Well, when I was 15 and I was doing my research on ISIS, most of the research I was getting was from people online in ISIS, because I thought that would be the most reliable source because they're in ISIS, and they were feeding me a lot of lies and they were giving me a lot of excuses about the things that maybe I was seeing on the media, like the attacks and things that ISIS were doing in Syria and Iraq. So they always had an excuse. And about the Manchester bombing and other bombings that happened while I was in ISIS, I had no connection to the outside world while I was in ISIS. I didn't have a phone. My husband couldn't use the internet, so we really were unaware of anything that was going on outside. We were only aware of what was going on within the Middle East.
So you stand by.
And I know that's hard for some people to believe, but that is, yeah.
Okay, so you stand by your denial that you knew anything in any detail about the Manchester bombing. You've said several times, and I wanted to ask you to explain this. You've said several times that you said what you said in those early interviews, very unrepentant, as I've said, because of the women who were around you. Can you explain what you mean and what kind of threat you felt under?
Yeah. When I came to Hull, I heard a lot of stories about women attacking other women for maybe uncovering their faces or talking to journalists, and I heard about, them threatening to burn people's tents with their children inside. And at the time, I had just given birth to my son. I was very protective of him because obviously I had lost my other two children. I felt a large responsibility towards him to protect him. I had no choice in speaking to journalists. I had no choice in uncovering my face or covering my face. I knew that these women had phones and they were watching everything I was doing and saying on the media, and I was just living in fear of them constantly, that one day they would just come to my tent and kill me in the night with my son. And I know that's hard for some people to understand, but it was fear.
So what's changed, Shamima?
Well, now I'm in a different camp, obviously. It's slightly more safer in this camp compared to Hull. I have friends now. I have a security shield around me with my friends. I feel more confident in myself now. I actually don't have my son anymore, so I only have to think about myself and my own safety. So if I do get attacked for taking my hijab off, that it's on me, but I'm just trying to change myself while I'm in this camp. I'm trying to better myself because I can.
I just wonder whether you would like to atone for your comments about the Manchester bombings. I just find, listening to what you're saying, there's an ongoing trauma because of that attack. And I don't think that your claims that you didn't know about it are going to wash with people. And I wonder if there is a an opportunity for you to make an apology to those who were involved. That was an ISIS attack. ISIS was the group you went to join. You became an ISIS bride. I mean, we are going to, at some point in this interview, address some of the allegations made about what you might have done as part of ISIS. To claim that you didn't know about these things when they were carried out by the group that you were with is hard for people to believe. Would you like to offer an apology to those people who were deeply hurt by what you said?
Yeah. Of course, I am completely sorry for anyone who has been affected by ISIS. You know, I in no way agree with what they did. I'm not trying to justify what they did. It's not justifiable to kill innocent people in the name of religion, and I just want to apologise.
One of the reasons that you were stripped of your British citizenship, I would imagine, was partly because of the tone that you adopted and the things that you said in those first interviews with the press and then on camera. But it's also because British intelligence presented evidence to the authorities here that said that you were very directly involved in terrorist activity. They didn't allege that you actually carried out bombings or attacks, but they did, for example, say that on a number of occasions you would personally stitch a suicide bomber into his suicide vest, into his suicide belt. You would prepare them for a terrorist attack. You were a very active part of an act of terrorism. Did you?
No, I did not. And I am willing to go to court and face the people who are making these claims and refute these claims, because I know that I did not do anything in ISIS apart from be a mother and a wife. And these claims, I think, are just being made to make me look worse, because the government don't actually have anything on me.
You mean there's no evidence, you're saying, that you did these things?
There's no evidence because nothing ever happened.
Why did you stay so long? Once you got there and you began to realise what was really involved in joining ISIS, it wasn't just going there to produce babies and to live in a devout Islamic state, but it was actually part and parcel of one of the most brutal terrorist organisations this world has ever seen. Why did you stay? You had 3 children there.
Because it was not possible to leave at all. You know, you had to find connections, and even then those connections could be fake. They could just be ISIS police, you know, trying to find people who are trying to leave so that they can put them in prison. My husband, after he came out of prison, he was being watched very closely by ISIS. You know, he couldn't even use a phone. He couldn't even go to the internet cafe. So how could we find connections to even leave, you know? And you also had to have a lot of money, and we did not have any access to money to leave.
What would you say to people watching this who say, well, she would say all of this now because ISIS lost? After an extraordinary initial bout of success, ISIS was pushed back, hemmed in, and basically destroyed as a fighting force there. So you were on the losing side. And you would say all of this now because they lost. But if they hadn't, if they actually had established and kept a caliphate, as they describe it, you would have been a sort of queen bee, wouldn't you?
No, I would not have. If ISIS was still much in power, I may have still been stuck in ISIS, I will admit that, but not by choice, but by force, because lack of any other way of getting out, you know? If ISIS were to come back now, if they were to come to the gates right now and say who wants to join us, and whoever doesn't join us, we'll kill them, I would rather die. I would rather die than go back to ISIS.
Well, indeed, the 2 girls that you left the UK with, your friends, they are dead. They were both killed in separate bombing incidents. You managed to survive, and you're talking to us now.